Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Funky Marketing Podcast. This is one of the episodes when we host Funky Marketing Top Voices. Some of the people that are, in our opinion, at least changing the game at least a little, like not being quiet when it comes to bullshit practices, showing how things needs to be done, and basically doing good job. I have the pleasure today to introduce to you MJ. I would just give you over to say a few sentences about yourself, and then we'll start with that.
Yeah, I'm MJ Peters. I'm the VP of Marketing at Firetrace. Firetrace makes systems that automatically detect and put out fires inside of equipment. So we're protecting lives and livelihoods from the impact of fire. I have been with Firetrace for 2.5 years now, and previous to that, I was in a bunch of different product and marketing roles at various tech companies working on environmental health and safety products.
Yeah, sounds like an interesting, like a vertical where you are working, right? How did you end up there?
Straight out of school, I was looking for a job where I could not work on finance or consulting, and that was the main two feeders out of my university were finance and consulting, and I was not interested in that. I come from a science background, studied chemistry, environmental science. I was pre-med. I thought I was going to be a doctor, but my attention to detail is just not good enough to be a doctor. So I was looking for an opportunity to work on technology that addressed, had a science element to it or addressed problems where I could use that background, and found this group called Halma, and they own a bunch of companies all around the world where they manufacture environmental health and safety tech. Figured it was a good fit for my science background, but also an opportunity to join their rotation program and work in a bunch of different areas of the business, because I had never worked in a business. I had always worked in nonprofits and research and stuff. So I didn't know what I was going to like and not like. And they actually let you try out different roles through this program. And I got to live in the US, in China, and in England during the first 2 years of my career, which is like an insane opportunity that shouldn't even be allowed. And so somehow I snuck my way into that program, and it was just an impossible offer to say no to. And I've been with them ever since.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. And I mean, what I find interesting is that you say you wasn't somebody who has this attention to details, and now like you are in marketing, and everybody says like marketing is all about those small little things, about details, and about having big picture, but being able to also zoom in and focus on details. And it's kind of interesting, and it's interesting, like the background, because like I am also somebody who came from the non-profit background. I was just like working more in the youth sector, working with and for youth, like youth policies, youth advocacy, also in environmental issues. But on the other hand, like I was organizing huge volunteer summer camps to stop mountain villages from dying and all those kind of things. And that's where I learned actually how to manage people, how to organize a group of 20 people for 20 days from 18 different countries. And it was like something that some skills I gathered there that I didn't know that even exist. But tell me, how did you grow up? How everything started?
I had the best childhood ever. I grew up in the mountains. I grew up in a town that primarily runs on tourism and real estate. But my dad was an entrepreneur, and he is in the stock market. So he had a small business, and at one point he was actually the 6th biggest employer in the town, but it was a pretty small town. And so they all kind of worked remotely on the computer, and they would take off halfway through the day if there was a lot of snow up on the ski mountain. And I grew up skiing and running around in the mountains, and it was an incredible childhood and has really instilled me with a love of the outdoors and of adventure ever since.
Yeah, I love that. Somehow we lost that. I'm looking at today's youth. They don't go outside that much. They are all focused like on their mobile phones or playing games, but on their laptops. I mean, that's cool. They are developing different skills, but still we need to balance also with going outside and doing something outside of looking at the screens.
Yeah, it's a different way to learn, right? But you learn valuable skills by challenging yourself and learning how to be safe in the outdoors, especially as you get up to the more technical ways that you can explore.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that first job. How did you get there, and let's go into details. How was that whole experience?
My first professional job, or just the first thing anybody ever paid me to do?
Whatever you consider as the first job, let's go with that.
So my first job, I was leading outdoor trips for kids ages about 8 to 12. So we did hiking and backpacking, and at one point I actually led circus camp, which was pretty fun. We put on a circus, and I walked the tightrope because I like to slackline. So I was in the circus too. So that was fun. But oh my God, leading groups of children with that much energy for the whole day is easily the most exhausting thing I've ever done. An 8-hour day doing that, it just doesn't even compare to a 12-hour day doing marketing. I'd take the marketing day anytime.
It reminds me of my sister. She's a teacher in the kindergarten, and I admire her every day. Like, how can you handle? She had like 33, 34 kids every day, and it's like, okay. So, what I'm interested in, what are uh, some of the challenges that you had to face so far in your career? I mean, I think you are just like beginning because you were young and still has to be a lot of challenges. But up until now, what are some that you can emphasize maybe?
The uh, the the biggest challenge in terms of something that I had to tackle in a role was when I first came to Firetrace. The team in marketing was very focused on traditional marketing brochures and events, and the president of the company who hired me to do this really wanted to completely pivot the organization from kind of this road that they were naturally going down of being more commoditized and selling on price to being able to have strong positioning, have a strong ideal customer profile, and be able to sell on value. And in order to do that, you have to have a really strong marketing department. Marketing is the foundation of that. But we didn't have the product marketing skill set in the team at all. And so I had to completely restructure the organization. I had to manage some people out of the organization, and I had to bring new people in and new skill sets. And this was all during my first ever role as a leader of a team. And it was you have to manage through some emotions and some challenges in terms of, there's people that had been in the organization a really long time and didn't feel comfortable with this amount of change. And so I am naturally super comfortable with change, but I think going through that and just being in a position where you being comfortable with change is not the only thing that needs to happen. You need to bring the organization along with you and bring other people on the journey. Was a really good exercise in being able to build some of that empathy, and for the long term, being able to influence organizations in the future.
Yeah, I totally get you. I mean, my first experience as a leader, it was a GM position, company of like 15 people, but it was digital marketing agency. So I didn't do the transformation in a way that it was maybe less demanding. But like what was interesting for me is when I learned a lot over there when I hired people or when I need to let go people. So it was like the first person I hired was the first person I decided to let go, because I saw some things and I realized it was a mistake. Okay, but I learned from that experience, and it was kind of interesting. Like when, I don't know if you had that kind of realization as well. Like when I became the GM, I wanted everybody to do the specific things that I do, things because like I want to grow more, I want to grow the team, the company, and everything else. And I needed to adjust that. Some people just want to come work for 8 hours, do a decent job, and go home, and that's okay. But then you kind of think, are those the right people for the organization? Those kind of things.
Yeah, and in some cases, I think it's good to have people who want to come in and just do a good job in some of the seats. You can't have people with the just do a steady job, stay in the same role mentality in all of your seats, because then you won't have enough room for ambitious people to move up in the organization. But I think just having really solid people in a couple of the seats, it takes the pressure off of you as a leader to always make sure people have stretch assignments, you know, because some people are just happy to be there and do a good job, in which case you can just trust them to be there and do a good job. So I'm perfectly happy with those people as long as you know you've got them in the right seats and you've got the ambitious people who are always trying to stretch themselves in a couple of your other seats.
Exactly, I totally agree. It was interesting, like I was talking with Sarah Pion as well from about the time when she worked in Drift, and kind of the pressure they all felt because they tend to employ all the A players.
Yeah.
Because they knew that they wanted to create like a hypergrowth company, and so that's how they hire. And she told me that the pressure was over the roof in everything they have done, and it's kind of interesting because like she compared it now when she worked in Alice, when they hired for specific things, like somebody who values the family or has specific other things that interest them, and this is what moves them. And it kind of all depends how what are the values and the company and the culture upon which the company stands.
Yeah, my fiance used to work at SpaceX, so it was a similar company culture to Drift, where everyone's an A player, everyone's driving hard all the time. He loved it, loved the environment. However, I don't think it's for everyone, and I don't think it's for every company. You know, I think companies can be successful without adopting that mentality. I think they can be successful with adopting that mentality. It's what works for you and your mission and vision, really.
Yeah, totally agree. So tell me, I'm interested because like we're working with a couple of companies that are also working in some niches which are not like all over the place, not like you are going after marketeers on LinkedIn or salespeople, but like certain smaller markets like construction or like transportation, logistics, those kind of things. So you are, I guess, also going, I think, after military or one way, right? And some other issues. So how difficult it was to find those people online, like not offline, but just move everything online.
Yeah, we have 4 segments. And some of them, like the military, I just don't market that heavily to. And that's just a matter of choosing where you're going to place your bets, especially with a small team and limited resources. I'm sure somebody has unlocked the secret formula to generating demand with the military, but it's not me. So the military business, I kind of leave to our account managers, and it's you know, they want to expand existing contracts and win the contracts that we can win, but not necessarily try to generate demand. So that's kind of what we're doing there. It's more doable than most people would give you credit for to market to non-marketers and salespeople, to market to people who are doing things like running wind farms. And that's another one of our segments. And depending on the market dynamics, which I would call, you know, is this a market where there are 1,000 accounts that could be $1 million a year for you? Or is this a market where there's 50,000 accounts that could be $10,000 a year for you? Then you can choose your channels. But either way, you require a deep understanding of the customer. You want to create content that's going to be compelling for them. And then you just go out and distribute it on the channels where those customers are. And those customers are on the internet too, right? They're 70% of all US adults are on Facebook. And I have a hard time believing that every single customer I'm trying to market to falls in the other 30%. So we find them online. And I mean, in a lot of cases, if you're a fast growing company, you don't need to reach your entire market all at once. So even just reaching the sliver of it that spends time online can be a great way to grow your business.
Well said. I like that you mentioned that, and it's usually we forget about it, that you can grow on a slow pace and just expand bit by bit. You don't need to talk with everybody all the time. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about communications and expanding the message and growing, like what are some of examples that you can say about bad marketing that you are seeing over there?
I think in general, anytime somebody's going for a quick win, and this is kind of true in all areas of life, like if you're trying to get healthy and lose weight, right? There's no quick win. You just have to eat healthy for a long time and do exercise, you know? Same thing in marketing. If anyone's promising you a quick win, it's usually either not true or it's going to come at the expense of longer term brand building efforts. Because frankly, if you spam everybody in your market with just annoying messaging that's not relevant to them at the time, then in the future they will tune you out, and you might be spoiling a long-term opportunity there. So bad marketing is when you're being a little bit greedy and you're doing things that are going to cause frustration for the customer rather than help the customer, because your outcome is, I want to make dollars for me fast.
And that's a common situation. If you talk about companies, and I mean, in my experience, those are the companies that I want to avoid, because like try to work with companies that kind of understand and have the same values and culture in a way, and like want to plan things out in a long way. But tell me, like, what are some of the takeaways that you are using right now in Firetrace, or maybe seeing somewhere from the marketing and from the sales, just like looking at, we are in 2020, it's pandemic, all kind of unexpected things are happening, and they will continue to happen. So what are some of the things that you are seeing that are working really well?
So I have noticed over the past 12 months, this is going to be a little bit of a, maybe an offbeat answer, but I've seen over the last 12 months that there seems to be two types of really effective marketers in companies. You've got innovators and you've got implementers. And the innovators are the ones with the new ideas. And the person I would point to is Chris Walker. He really, I mean, at least from what I was seeing, pioneered this idea of you can use paid social to guarantee content delivery. And he was the first one to go out and run with that. And now a lot of companies have taken that and implemented it, because inside those companies, there are implementers who are open-minded to the new ideas, and they can operationalize them within the company. And so I think if you've got an innovator and an implementer on your team, or if you've got an implementer on your team and you have a strong relationship with an innovator, or you know where to look for the ideas the innovators are driving forward, then you can have a lot of success with new marketing tactics. Because I think the fact of the matter is, in marketing, channels and tactics get really crowded. And you see everybody talking about how ebooks and, you know, driving people to convert directly on LinkedIn is just a bad idea now. And at one point in time, that was an innovative idea that was really interesting and working for a lot of people. And just the market has moved on from it. So as a marketer, you need to identify how you can be ahead of those trends and how you can make the innovative ideas work for you while they are still working. And I think the best way to do that is to, if you're an implementer, look for a way to benefit from the work that innovators are doing. And if you're an innovator, look for a way to benefit from the talents that an implementer can bring to your team or your business.
Very well said. I think I saw you for the first time in the case study with Refine Labs. I think, yeah. It's a good example. That's the case studies, that how we actually should do them. And I totally agree with content distribution and all those kind of things. I was doing all that for like years in B2C. And when I started Funky Marketing, like last January, these are some of the things that I started doing as well in B2B, because like people are still not even like a year after, people are still like CEOs, decision makers, they don't use Facebook, they don't use Instagram, but all of them are there, and like you just need them to have like 3 minutes on the platform and to see the ad, because that's how the algorithm works. And you actually don't need always the decision makers. You can go with people that will use your products or your services, and they can influence the decision maker. And a lot of companies are actually forgetting those steps in how decisions are being made.
Oh, I totally agree with that last point about you don't always have to reach the decision maker. Just think about how, if you are a decision maker, how would you be influenced? And for me personally, maybe a Facebook or Instagram ad or a LinkedIn ad will influence me. However, if somebody on my team comes to me and says, we need to do this, we need to implement this product, that's going to go a much longer way because that person has my trust. So influencing the people that can influence the decision maker is a great strategy. And oftentimes it's cheaper and it's doable, right? So if you're in a really niche market, you might not be able to market just to the decision makers simply because of the way digital advertising is set up. You have to have an audience of at least 1,000. And if there's not 1,000 decision makers in your market, which is the case a lot of the times for me, you have to expand to the next level of people in their circle.
I was kind of just having fun with a client and talking about specific things because he's in a similar place like you and your company are, and like he's kind of I was tried to use like LinkedIn Premium to kind of look at the decision makers from my industry and to kind of try to add valuable comments to their posts and kind of like, but I cannot make myself do that. Those are all bullshit. Like they're posting cats or videos or something else. And I was like, well, yeah, what can I say? But if you actually create valuable content, they may not engage right away, but if you get into discussions in the DM, they will give you the feedback for the content. And also what I see, like sometimes you need to use all those people in marketing and sales on LinkedIn and to get them to get you to your target audience. That's sometimes also the way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in my industry have probably had a similar thought or a similar experience to your client there, where the community of people on LinkedIn is very robust within sales and marketing. So LinkedIn is a great organic platform if you are offering marketing services, software as a service for sales and marketing. He's correct that the industrial world, right, like machine shop owners are not quite as active on LinkedIn. They're getting there, and I think it will happen in the future. So it's a good idea to build a strong understanding of the platform and how it works now so that if your community migrates there in the future, you know how to take advantage of it. But what I'm doing right now is I'm just sharing my expertise from the marketing perspective and using and building relationships with marketers. And although it's not necessarily generating pipeline the same way that if I was selling a software as a service product to marketers that it might be for me, it is building my brand in such I ask people to talk to them or for research purposes. They see that I'm adding value consistently on a day-to-day basis, and they're more likely to say yes to an interview, which is great for marketing, for product marketing in particular. And it eventually I build relationships with marketers inside the companies where I want to talk to the operations person or the engineer, and they're the person who buys my product, and I can get a warm intro that way. And it doesn't happen as quickly or as often, but when it does, it's really valuable. I mean, it happened 2 weeks ago for me, and it got us an interview for a new product development project that's really important to the company. And so if those are the results that you can see and it's free and you enjoy it, then I think LinkedIn is a place you should be, regardless of if there is a robust community among your target audience today.
Getting in through the back door. That's always a good thing. Yeah, I like how you think, and I like that way of thinking. Like maybe there isn't a way, but right now to do this in a specific way that everybody else are doing. But if there's a platform which allow us to do something to like reach as many people as possible and then create relationships with them, it will lead to something else. I'm also seeing this as a way to grow on LinkedIn. I don't know what's your experience, but in mine, if I connect with people that are same as I am, so marketers, my peers, and they are going after the same target group as I am. And if I am able to establish myself as a leader, as a teacher, as somebody who is recognized as authorities within that community within my peers, they will recommend me a lot. I think like I closed 31 clients, 31 companies this year, and 20% of those are through recommendation from my peers.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that absolutely makes sense. And if you think about it, when LinkedIn first started taking off as a platform for sales and marketing people, it probably felt the same way as it does for, you know, industrial operations professionals today. Like most people are sharing cat memes. So that was probably true of the sales and marketing community on the platform a couple of years ago. And a few innovators made it turn into the platform that it is today. So imagine if people always think about, oh, I wish that I was one of those people who was an early actor. If you're in a community where there's not a robust community on LinkedIn today, you might have a chance to be that early person who really takes advantage of it. And the flip side of that is when you are the early person, it feels kind of stupid and weird and silly because nobody else is there. But the trade-off is you have that opportunity to grow really fast.
I remember the guy who came up first with the kind of post that we are crafting right now on LinkedIn. So like writing in this style, like mobile first and clear. And Josh Fetcher, I think he's banned now from LinkedIn because he was trying too many things and now he's banned for life. Kind of interesting story. But anyway, so tell me, what are some things that keep you going through the tough days? Especially now when we are in a lockdown, then we are not in the lockdown, but we cannot do as many things outside of work, and still we need those things to actually be able to perform and to actually have life outside of the work.
Yep, my fiance absolutely is the number one answer here. He gets an earful anytime I have a tough day, and he is the best, right? Always listens to me, always so gracious. But beyond that, I would say I have a lot of intrinsic motivation. So I need to put my energy somewhere. And it's much better for me, even when the going gets tough, to keep going than it is to stop, because it makes it worse if I, sit there and do nothing. So I would say just honestly, all the things that, provide a healthy lifestyle, like get 8 hours of sleep, take a 1 hour break in the middle of the day. This is my number one trick. Like, don't work 8 hours in a row, work 4 hours in the morning, take a 1 hour break and work 4 hours in the afternoon, and then stop working at a really vicious pace. Like maybe you need to work 10 hours, but I will work at a really fast pace during the day and get a lot done. And then I leave time where I still might be thinking about work, but there's less pressure. I'm not trying to meet deadlines after 5 p.m. I use it to think strategically, and I work at a slower pace. And it's really important to have room to think fast and think slow.
Yeah, this reminds me of our mutual friend, like Anna Furmanov. Like she's talking about this all the time, and I totally agree. I tend to do important things in the morning while I'm still fresh and while like my brain is still working, and then like you need a break from some things. And I hear a lot of people saying like they work for 10, 13, 15 hours a day, but you can effectively just work like, let's say, up to 3, maybe 4 hours a day. Everything outside of that is not really active work, is maybe thinking about work or you're slacking. Sometimes it also happens.
Yeah, I'm the type of person who tries to like time block and get a bunch of stuff done all the time. And my last boss one time told me in a one-to-one, at a certain point in your career, MJ, and you have reached this point, you need to be comfortable that you are paid some of the time to stare out a window and think about stuff. And it's true. He's like, you should find more times to stare out a window and think about stuff. And it's sometimes your biggest breakthroughs are when you don't feel like you're working that hard, but you're making these mental connections that are so important, especially when you're in a senior role in the organization.
That's very important. Did you have actually someone who mentors you in that way, giving you those kind of advices, and I take you through the challenges that you have?
Yeah, I've had a couple of different mentors, and I'll preface this by saying that I'm a really bad mentee. Like because I always try to work my way through problems and I don't ask for help and I just don't know when to ask for help. However, I've had a couple of mentors that have been great because at the beginning of my career, they just forced me to talk to them. And so then naturally you start talking about your problems and they find ways to offer help. I had one mentor who was critical for me in making the right job transition decision at the right time. And more recently, I've actually become part of a formal mentoring program with the goal of getting more women into executive management positions. And so I have a mentor who is male, but he has volunteered to support this cause. And so I'm talking to him on a monthly basis. He's a really interesting person. So again, that structured format helps me because I'm a bad mentee, and it forces me to take advantage of mentorship opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the mentee needs to be involved as much as the mentor is, so for the relationship to work. Like, I actually think I had only one, as they say, like a mentor, which was my actually the owner of the first agency that I work at, and he helped me in two ways. Like first, he helped me kind of overcome my mindset of like working in non-for-profit to work in for-profit company, because like I mean I think that kind of thing gave me a lot of different perspectives, not to look like money first, profit first, but also think about giving value. But then when I became like the GM in the early days, the two owners they just disappeared for 2 months. I didn't know the processes, the passwords, anything, and I was the last one that came to the company and became the first ever GM. So and I actually had the list of 17 problems that we need to solve, or I'm going out of the company. And they told me like, you're the GM, go ahead and solve them. And so basically, they made me go learn about how to craft the operations, the processes, do one-on-ones with employees, manage teams, all those kind of things. I had to do it on my own to educate myself. And I mean, we slowed down as a company, but it helped me a lot for my future career.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
An interesting question, and I kind of ask it because I get tons of different answers. And what are some things outside of work that we don't talk about that much?
Yeah. So I'm very motivated by learning. In fact, we're going through this personal development exercise at Firetrace called Belbin Team Roles. And one of the outputs of it, it's sort of like a Myers-Briggs or an Enneagram, but one of the outputs of it is you see which words your colleagues would most use to describe you. And the words that my colleagues most use to describe me are hard driving, make stuff happen, and motivated by learning. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I'm always looking to learn different skills outside of work. And the one that I focused on this year is financial literacy. And going through this has been really eye-opening for me because I like to learn, but it's also made me realize how access to financial literacy is not democratized. You know, there's so much to know that will make you so much better off and more stable in the future that like we're not teaching people. And therefore a small few who either learned it from a mentor or a parent or went out and decided that they're going to focus on learning this year have privilege to have this information. I think there's an opportunity to have more access, give more people access to that and help people help themselves. So I think that's kind of an interesting problem in the world. And it goes together with a lot of the conversations I think that we're seeing in society about income inequality, especially in the US.
It does. It's very important subject, and I'm kind of looking at it here in Serbia from different perspectives, because like we are trying, the government is actually trying to get freelancers to pay the taxes 5 years back, because they didn't even know that they kind of need to pay them, or kind of they weren't aware of it, and it's kind of all like interesting, but nobody's teaching us about how to handle finances, how to do specific things. Like here in Serbia, we didn't even have like chance to pitch for investors when it comes to startups and like early stage companies. So nobody knew how to do that. Now we are still going like there are accelerators and all kind of stuff working on that, but it's still in the early phase. So you need to kind of get through experience, and you need as many people as possible to get through the experience so they can teach others. And it kind of goes a long way. But I think we all, not only in the US but in the world, we need to know how to handle the finances.
Yeah, and I think probably I'm quite interested in this, even though a lot of people would probably consider this a dry subject, and some of the books on it are extremely dry. My father, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, is an entrepreneur in the investing world. And so I grew up around it a lot, even though I was never explicitly taught it by my parents. I heard snippets of it, and I saw some of his success, and it made me motivated to go learn about how this stuff really works.
Nice. I like how we get motivated by our parents to become entrepreneurs or to focus on financial things. In my case, about basketball and how not to do things if you don't want to fail as an entrepreneur. Like my father did some things like he gave stuff for free to the people because he cared, but then the business went down because of those things. Like kind of interesting. So 3 questions for the end. First one, what is funky marketing for you?
I think it's marketing that's producing remarkable results where you're outperforming all expectations. And I think the way that you get there is by doing all of the things that are hard, which I think it honestly starts with product marketing. You have to have a deep understanding of your customers as a marketer. And a lot of marketers don't have the Rolodex, as people would say in the US, the list of contacts, because they're not in sales and it's not their job to talk to customers every day. So you have to go out and you might have to do some cold calling, and warm intros are best if you can get them from your sales team. But sometimes you're going through a channel partner and you don't have direct access to the end customer. You have to do the work to form those relationships so that you can get the information you need to succeed. And it is not glamorous. And it is not glamorous even when you're at the top of the organization, right? I lead the marketing team. And my first 90 days on the job, I did a lot of cold calling and a lot of cold emailing to set up conversations with customers, and it makes you better. And I think that applies across all things. So I gave the example of product marketing, but it's the same in content creation. You got to show up, you got to be consistent, you've got to, edit ruthlessly. And if you do all the hard things, it tends to come together and produce remarkable results.
Love it. Customers or clients first. I was kind of working on something these days. So I want to provide my team with a chance to kind of talk with the clients. Maybe not the potential ones, okay, sometimes yes, if there's a chance, but like I'm trying to use existing clients and kind of educate the others of the team who didn't have experience to talk to them. So I kind of bring them on reporting calls so they can present themselves, and just like the clients know that they are listening, but they can hear the good and the bad feedback and everything else. And so in the next period of time, they will also have a chance to take over the reporting calls and get into those kind of things. And I think it's a good start, like valuable experience, because not many people can just pick up the phones and call. But if you have these kind of chances to kind of do a shortcut to at least listening to the clients, that's also good.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a really good initiative that you're doing to get everybody more experience in front of customers.
Yeah, I think that's how somebody else taught me that in my case. So what are two things that you will double down in 2021?
Yeah, it's a good transition, because one of my 2 things is talking to customers. And the reason is I've doubled down on talking to customers as a marketer every year since 2016, and it has not failed me yet. So I'm going to continue that into 2021. The other is content quality. And I think in 2020, we heard a lot about distribution. And I think distribution is critical, because if nobody reads it, then who cares, right? Or nobody consumes it, then who cares? However, I think overall in marketing, we may have overcorrected or at least some of us, for distribution and the emphasis on distribution. Once you get distribution right, the high quality content is what performs the best. And so I think we could benefit in my company from slowing down and making sure that every piece of content that we're paying to distribute is really worth consuming and it's going to move the needle with our customers. So edit, make it easier to read, easier to consume, and most importantly, pick the subject matter that's really going to resonate. And when you look at your inbound pipeline, right, how many dollars of opportunities are you generating? I haven't run an in-depth analysis on the numbers, but from the day-to-day of me looking at what's working and what's not, I believe very strongly that there's a couple of pieces of high quality content that have produced the majority of our pipeline this year. So I'm going to double down on content quality in 2021.
Yeah, we love it. I think I was just listening yesterday, kind of like which pieces of B2B content perform the best in 2020. And it was kind of interesting, like the people who were commenting on those things, they didn't know actually what they represent or why are they there. And there's a huge belief that we still didn't figure out the online events. Mm-hmm. We are still doing it the same old way, and we still need to get into those things a lot more, and it will definitely improve as we do more of those things, invent more, get more creativity, and especially in like B2B, creativity, feelings, emotions, those kind of things are just starting to show up. Like they still didn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah, and Dave Gerhardt is the person that I started following in probably late 2019, early 2020, and he talks about that stuff all the time. And I'll be honest, I didn't care about it at all. I never slowed down to think about that stuff. And he inspired me to do a bit of a deep dive into branding. Before I did my deep dive into financial literacy, I did a deep dive into branding, and I read a bunch of books on branding. And it really has been a game changer. And it's kind of hard to measure, right? But I think that if you slow down and you think about those more creative elements, your content quality is going to be higher, and then it becomes worth distributing to a bunch of people in your target market.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same with Dave Gerhardt, and I figure out what they are doing in Thrift in 2019. In the previous agency I worked at, we ordered conversational marketing, mm-hmm. and the book came, and 2 weeks after that, the postman brought another book called This One Scale, a small book or 47, 48 points, things that they have done that cannot be scaled, but those are the things that got them into the hypergrowth. And we didn't order the book. They just sent it on their own from US to Serbia, and I said, okay, man, that's how it's done. And I mean, not only that, but the way they actually started to produce products. They found out that product people are very pissed because nobody understands what exactly they do. And how do we define them? They gather them into the community and they listen. And now they are producing product after product.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another example of a company that doubled down on stuff that you might not be able to instantly measure is HubSpot. They have insanely good customer service. And I think very few companies are doubling down on customer service. I think it's really hard to be insanely good at customer service. And they've unlocked that. And as a customer, their flywheel mechanism is so true, right? I am selling HubSpot all the time internally. And I have trust with the people that I talk to and recommend HubSpot to in a way that their salespeople don't, because they're not their colleague. And so the fact that they've been able to unlock that through their excellent customer service is really impressive.
Yeah, I'm laughing because these days I was pitched by a girl from HubSpot to kind of take over the HubSpot deal and be the partner for this region. And it's kind of interesting the way the email sequence went, because like she was first sending the video, that's me in a GIF, then in another one, like, hey, if you doubt that it is me, it is really me, like going, and I'm not quitting on you, Nemanja, I'm not quitting, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the end, the question I'm always asking people is there a topic or something that you want to say for the end, for the audience, or maybe like a message, something that you want to emphasize and we didn't talk about it?
No, I think we talked about it, but the message I always try to emphasize is marketers need to sit down and talk with customers. And I need to emphasize also that it's really not easy to do this, especially in organizations where the organization hasn't historically had marketing talk to customers. But doing that one simple thing is the main thing that has gotten me success in my career as a marketer. And so just do the hard thing and get customers to talk to you, and you'll never look back. It's like a cheat code. So put in the work, make it happen. It is hard. Know it's going to be hard and it's not going to happen fast, but if you put in the work, it will pay off.
Thanks. That was great. So tell me and the audience when they can find you. You also tell them about the podcast. You are one of the hosts. Also, to be honest, this is one of the few podcasts that I was listening recently, and I really like the way you do it, the questions you ask, and the value that the podcast is bringing.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, MJ Peters. I am also now dabbling in Twitter, so @_MJ Peters on Twitter. Our podcast that I do with Matthew Chanella is called The Industrial Marketing Show. It's kind of a podcast for people who listen to other podcasts and read business books, and they work in industrial companies, and there's never industrial case studies. So if you happen to be listening to this and you're in hardware and you're in manufacturing as opposed to SaaS, we'll have a lot of case studies that feel really relevant to you. But frankly, the fundamentals are the same, whether you're in SaaS or you're in hardware. But you can find that on all the major podcast platforms, The Industrial Marketing Show.
Cool. Thanks a lot one more time for being on a Funky Marketing podcast and for being one of the top voices of the Funky Marketing.
Thank you for featuring me. It's a great honor.